myself. This is building the dream, one tree at a time. What's this all about? Quick recap. We bought a chunk of land wooded with southern yellow pine, cut a quarter-mile driveway to a nice spot in the middle, cleared a lot, cut down a bunch of trees, built the foundation for our off-grid custom dream house and barn. Last episode we built the barn structure, minus the walls, for now. Now into the house. If you've watched our previous videos, you caught a glimpse of our house plans. It's no shack. We have a big family to cram into here. Building materials are expensive, and I'm not a rich man. But I do have a sawmill and a killer work ethic and some time on my hands. Haha. So what do? We mill all these trees we've been cutting down into wood we can build with. We're timber framing our house, which means we'll need a bunch of big timbers. And by bunch, I mean about 400 or so. That's not even beginning to mention all the lumber, boards and such. So let's get to milling some timbers. One thing we did that I thought was pretty cool is we invited our family and friends to come help mill. For each person who milled a timber, we're carving their name in it so that it'll be visible from inside the house. So walking through our house, we'll be able to look around and see the names of our family and friends who helped us. And we are very thankful to them for their help. So how easy is it really to run the sawmill? Well, I'll show you. So here's the sawmill we've been using. This is a HM126 from Woodland Mills. Can take logs up to 26 inches in diameter. Most of what we got here is not even that big, so works out just fine for us. Got a couple of track extensions, so I can do logs up to about 23 feet, which I've maxed it out a couple times on some of the timbers I've needed. Here we're going to cut this log. It's about 14 inches diameter, so no problem for this thing to handle. Yeah, this is it. So we got a water tank up here. I've upgraded the ball valve system here. The one that came with it is okay at best. Much better with this upgrade. What that does is that drips down some lubrication onto the blade right there. What do I put in the tank? That's it. Some guys use straight water, some guys use diesel. Water with soap works great for me. I have a 14 horsepower motor on this thing, just a Kohler Command Pro, pretty common engine, and works great. Here's to tension the blade. There's a couple different methods of doing it. I use a torque wrench. It works for me. Never had an issue. 23 foot-pounds is what I do. There it is. Alright, let's fire it up and mill up this log. Alright, we got it fired up. This crank handle, is how we raise and lower the sawmill head. That goes up. Put that down. Over here, we got a scale. That's going to tell us the height of our cut. On this side, the true scale. On this side, it adds a little bit for each number. It basically adds a little bit for the thickness of the saw blade, the kerf, and adds a little bit per board for drying. As the boards dry, they shrink a little bit. We are going with true dimensions on our cuts, so we're going to use this side of the scale. So I like to use as much of the log as I possibly can. So we are cutting a 14-inch log. We're going to start with about a 12.5-inch cut. Right about there. And run it through, and we'll rotate the log 90 degrees, run it through again, rotate it again, run it through again, rotate it, cut it a final time. Then we'll have a squared off log that's called a cant. Then I take care of dimensioning it to what I need. In this case, I think I'm going to make some 2x10s. I need a few more 2x10s for the build. And I should be able to get 4, maybe 5 out of this log. Here it goes. People often ask about how to figure out what you're going to get out of a specific tree. Once the tree is already cut down, you can measure the diameter. Now you want to measure on the small end of the log. If the tree is still standing and you can't effectively measure the diameter, you can measure the circumference. Theoretically, dividing that by pi would give you the diameter, but the thickness of the bark kind of messes with you there. So I figured, rather than dividing the circumference of the tree by pi, or 3.14, I divide it by 3.5. And I've found that that gets me pretty close to the diameter of the actual usable wood under the bark. Here's where all mathematicians will hate me for changing pi, but guess what? I did it, and it works. Once you got the diameter of the log, you can figure out what size cant you can cut out of it. The cant is the squared off timber that you cut out of the log. Typically on a nice straight log, the square cant size you're going to get is going to be about 70% of the diameter of the log. So if you got a 20-inch diameter log, you could get theoretically a 14 by 14 cant. So I use that basic math to figure out what size timbers I can cut of any particular log diameter or even circumference. Made a chart for quick reference, and it served me pretty well. Alright, so now what we have is cant. It's the term for a squared off log. It's not perfect, obviously. There's still some live edge in the corners, but it's our starting point. It measures 11 by 11. What we want out of this log are a bunch of 2x10s. So what I'm going to do now is cut another inch off the top, set that aside to later make a 1x out of. I'll cut an inch off of this side, set that aside as well. What I do is I set aside all my boards that are about an inch or 2 inches thick, and then I cut a bunch of 2x's and 1x's all at the same time. Just put them all up on the mill on edge and trim one edge, flip them all over, trim the other edge to dimension, and that's how I get my 1x6s, 2x6s, and all that. So we're going to get a 1x6, well, for now a 1x11 and then a 1x10, but later to be trimmed down. So a 1x off the top edge of this, a 1x off the side edge, and then we'll cut it into 2x10s. So after cutting our 10x10 cant and cutting our first 2x10 off of it, you can see we still got a decent amount of live edge on here on this first board. That makes it not an ideal 2x10, but still great for things like blocking, where we don't need a full-length joist, but blocking in between a joist. So that's what this will be used for. And we should be able to get 4 more nice clear ones out of the rest of this thing. Four beautiful 2x10s and one not so beautiful 2x10. Next step is to pick up all this with the tractor, bring it over to where we got them stacked so they can start to dry out. There it is. Okay, so this log we're going to cut into an 8x8. 8x8s are very common in my house design. I got about 100 of them. You can see this log is quite a bit fatter on this side than that side, which is pretty common. So what I do is I elevate the small side. I got just a little car jack in there by about half of whatever the difference is between big side and small side. So what happens then is the center line of the tree is level with the track, and that gives us the most yield and the best timber. So we're gonna mill this puppy up now. Have a 10x10 cant. We're going to cut either an inch off of each side or 2 inches off of one side, 2 inches off the other side to make it into an 8x8. That's what we're going for. And whatever we cut off of this, we're going to save as 1x's or 2x's, which will later be cut to the width that we need. There we go. Got ourselves a beautiful 8x8 timber and a handful of 1x and 2x ready for dimensioning. It's that easy, folks. The timber sizes we're making are 8x8s for the posts, sills, and some of the ridge beams, 8x10s for the main beams, and 6x8s for the floor joists and roof rafters. We're making the diagonal braces out of 4x6s. That's the timbers, about 400 in all. Now let's talk about the lumber. Main floor framing is going to be pretty standard. 2x10 joists at 16 on center, except unlike typical 2x10s, mine are actually 2x10 inches. Not 1.5 by 9 1/4 like the ones you'll buy at the store. 2x10. We'll need about close to 150 of these. The upstairs floor of the house will be far from standard. 6x8 floor joists are going to sit every 3 feet. Obviously you can't span 3 feet with plywood, but we're not going to use plywood for that. We're going to run tongue and groove 2x6 planking across the joists. Those planks will be finished from above and they'll be visible from below as the ceiling. Similar deal for the roof ceiling, except those will be 1x6 planks since they won't have a load on them. All that planking, then going to have to plane, cut all the tongues and grooves. That'll be a separate video. The roof structure will be framed with 2x as well, same as the wall framing. Between the floor and the ceiling planking, the roof and wall framing, that's going to be close to 3,000 pieces or so. And yes, all that lumber does have to dry out before I use it. Luckily, this pine dries quickly, especially in this heat. We're also going to be milling a variety of other woods. Red oak for the floors and stairs, poplar for the doors and trim, cedar for the porch posts, maple for the cabinets, walnut for furniture. I'm not sure yet, but I'm considering milling my own siding out of white oak. That's going to be a lot of work, so I don't know yet. If you've ever milled your own siding, let me know in the comments and share whatever wisdom you may have on the matter. I know Woodland Mills makes a lap siding jig attachment that speeds up the process. That may be something to consider. All told, we're milling thousands of boards, and it's all coming from, I'm estimating about 500 to 600 trees, and that's only cutting down an acre or two of woods. Not bad. I needed help getting video footage, so I got a video guy.
I'm the video guy.
Here's what we came up with to mill a bunch of boards as efficiently as possible. Rather than having to load a log with the tractor each time, mill it up, and then move everything off of the tractor, we load a whole bunch of logs onto this thing with the tractor all at once. And we mill them all, stack them here, then come through with the tractor, pick the whole stack up, move it out of the way, reload logs. Works pretty well. Ramps down. Roll it on up. Ramps up. And mill. See, folks, just that easy. Clamp it down. Whew. Sure is sunny out here. There we go. Blade's really easy to change on this thing. Got a knob here for safety. Hook these. Oh, of course, you gotta untension the blade. Right up. Pull off the blade guard, that helps. good, Joe.
Thank you.
Have a blade. Now's a good time to get all this sawdust out of here. Thank you. They come with a little bit of an oily coating on them. You want to wipe that off a little bit. It just a little. Make sure it's moving smoothly. There we go. Blade guard back on. Close her up. And the safety knob. Come on. There we go. And then we just tension it back to the right torque. That's it. What's that? How many sawmill blades do we go through? Whew, good question. Lots. We typically get anywhere from 2 to 10 or more logs per blade, depending on the size, the species of the log, how clean it is. Dirt and rocks in the bark will dull the blades prematurely. Luckily, we have a Woodland Mills blade sharpener. More on that later. So there it is, the milling process. Owning a sawmill is one of the most satisfying things in the world. I've already built countless things from the wood I've milled, from sheds, barns, shelving, cabinets, furniture. Now I'm building my house, where I'll live for probably the rest of my life. So my wife and kids and I will be able to look around us and know that every single piece was crafted from our woods right here, rather than costing us a bunch of money or pouring our time, dedication, care, love, blood, sweat, and tears into it. You can't put a price on that. So here's a big thank you to Woodland Mills for their great machines, their exceptional customer service. They're an amazing company. I'm happy to show off their products. And thank you all for watching. Really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share our videos, get the word out. Next episode, we'll be cutting the joinery on all these timbers, so look out for that one. God bless you. We'll catch you on the next one.